Welcome to the Sugar Freedom Kitchen. I'm Catherine Gordon. Today I am sharing an amazing book, Diabetic Cookery, Recipes and Menus by Mrs. Rebecca Wolff Oppenheimer. And this was written in 1917, so it is in the public domain, or I know that it's on Thrift Books because I got this from Thrift Books. So it's in the public domain, so we can share what's in this book, we can talk about what's in this book. Well, you can do that with most any book, but the reality is that you could literally copy this, reprint it, you can use it, put it to your own use, helping people to understand how to eat in order to manage blood sugar, blood glucose. A little story, if I may. My husband and I both agree that the best thing we ever did was have our son Colin, but I had him later in life and I developed pregnancy-induced hypertension and impaired glucose tolerance when I was pregnant at age 36 going into age 37. I turned 37 while I was pregnant. So when this happens, your chances of developing type 2 diabetes go up a great deal. So once I had impaired glucose tolerance during my pregnancy, it was very likely that I was going to become a type 2 diabetic down the road. I was very aware in those years after my son was born to keep checking my blood sugar. And it didn't take long for consistent numbers, fasting blood sugar levels of over 100 to start happening over and over and over again. Also, I gained a great deal of weight during my pregnancy and it didn't come off. I gained about like 60, 70 pounds. And then over the 2 years after my son was born, I only lost about 20 of those. I had developed obesity. I was definitely overeating on a regular basis and my blood sugar, my fasting blood sugar level was up. So I had to take action. The things that I did in order to lose weight, I started lifting weights, doing intervals, and I eliminated sugar and grains, led to my writing Sugar Freedom, which is available for free at sugarfreedom.com. But then, after I went through menopause a couple of years ago, I realized that I needed to start tightening up my food plan even more. And that's where a book like Diabetic Cookery comes in. So as I aged and matured, what I was finding was a couple of symptoms were starting to come back. I was starting to get burning feet, numbness in the tips of my fingers. I was starting to get cracked heels, moles, skin tags. And so these are manifestations beyond your weight and your waistline that are saying something is going wrong with your glucose tolerance, with your insulin resistance. And so I started to tighten up the carbohydrates, started to eliminate even some of the things like oat bran that I had been eating, eliminate some of the fruits, sticking to only things like tart apples, Granny Smith apples. Interestingly enough, they talk about that in this book. Before 1917, pharmaceutical insulin was not available. You couldn't just take insulin to deal with your blood sugar. So the only way you could deal with it was through diet. Rebecca Wolff Oppenheimer talks in the introduction about the difficulty of preparing tasty meals for people who are dealing with diabetes because of their appetites. And I think that's what's so fascinating is that back in 1917, they were trying to find a way to satisfy and enhance the appetites of people who were dealing with diabetes. Whereas now we're trying to satisfy their appetites to help them eat less. They were actually trying to help them eat more and get better nutrition. So it was really an opposite problem. Rebecca Wolff Oppenheimer's problem was trying to make the food that was acceptable to diabetics tasty and desirable and appealing. A little bit of the opposite, but what's so exciting is that once I started to dig into this book and see what she was cooking, how she was putting meals together, I realized it was very similar to what I had done with Sugar Freedom and also what I was doing in order to get new manifestations of insulin resistance and glucose intolerance that were coming up after menopause. And just to be quite frank with you, I did do a carnivore nutrition approach from 2018 into the summer of 2019, and it was astonishing in how it shrunk my moles, it cleared up my cracked heels, it advanced my mood, it made me feel so much better. It was really kind of miraculous. And so I have gravitated more toward an animal-based ketogenic approach. I won't call myself totally carnivore, but that's the direction that I'm going in. But what's so wonderful about this book is that it demonstrates what happens when you realize that you have a certain level of carbohydrate tolerance. And that is what the doctors used to do pre-insulin. They would see the patient, they would work with the patient, and they would decide what their level of carbohydrate tolerance was. There are so many wonderful ideas and recipes in this book. One of the things that I see is how she manages things like if you can tolerate some low sugar fruits and the low sugar vegetables and the salads and the dressings. Oh my goodness, she has the most amazing ideas in here. And remember, they had ice boxes back then. And for example, she has a recipe for mayonnaise here where you have to chill the bowl with ice, and you're literally beating the olive oil and the egg and the other ingredients. You don't even have a hand mixer. It's pretty amazing what they were able to accomplish back before insulin was available. So that's the most important thing that I can share with you today. This book, Diabetic Cookery by Mrs. Rebecca Wolff Oppenheimer. I hope that you'll get it, take a look at it. It's in the public domain, and see how this translates into your modern eating, and maybe it could give you some ideas for how to cook. And also wonderful ideas in this book are actual meal plans, everything broken down: breakfast, lunch, dinner, carb counts, protein counts, total calories, total carbohydrate. Really fascinating. Also, another really fascinating thing is all of these menus up over 2,000 calories a day. Pretty interesting how much they were trying to get their diabetic patients to eat, much less restriction in terms of calories in, calories out, and more carbohydrate tolerance, getting appropriate nutrition, and keeping the meals appealing. I hope you'll get a chance to read it. Diabetic Cooking by Rebecca Wolff Oppenheimer. As always, practice what you love, eat for yourself, and come back and see me soon here in the Sugar Freedom Kitchen.